Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about exploring reparations through Dungeons and Dragons. So, reparations is an interesting subject. We just celebrated Juneteenth in America, which is a celebration of the emancipation of American slaves. So, in America, we said, "Hey, slavery is wrong." We fought a war over it. We finished that war and said slavery's done. And a lot of people will tell you that the Civil War wasn't about slavery, but I can tell you right now, slavery existed before the Civil War. And when the Civil War was done, slavery was finished, right? There's still some, bows to tie up, some T's to cross, and some I's to dot. But at that point forward, slavery was a done deal in America, figuratively, and it started the road to quite literally ending all of slavery within America, right? So now in America, past slavery in America, we finished that with the Civil War, there's a question now of reparations, right? So we're like, hey, there are a lot of privileged white people in America that today still enjoy the specific privileges that their ancestors got from using slaves, right? And so there's this question, right? Who in America should pay who else in America reparations? Should 40 acres and a mule be honored for every African American today, right? Should be given them, should each African American in America today be given 40 acres and a mule today, right? Should they be given a certain amount of money? Should it be prorated by, based on how close your ancestry was to an American slave? There's all these questions, right? So the reason why I'm talking about this today is I just watched an absolutely a very, very good film. It's called The Takedown, and it's a French buddy cop movie, right? And that movie really looked in a very it raised an incredible amount of really fascinating questions about reparations. So that movie is a black French cop with in a buddy cop movie with a white privileged French cop, and and the entire movie, in my opinion, is a remake of the movie Bulletproof with Adam Sandler, and I can't remember who else was in that, but it was kind of the exact same structure. So this movie, The Takedown 2022, you can watch it, and there will be spoilers for this movie here in this content, so you can watch this over on Netflix, and there's a part in the film where the black French cop, right, who's played by a really fascinating actor, Omar Sy, who I'm really starting to enjoy his body of work. So the black French cop is working with his white privileged partner, who's was sent to private schools and clearly, is privileged, right? Whereas the black French cop has come, up from the streets and has struggled hard and, had a hard life, right? And the exact opposite of his white privileged French partner, right? So there's a part in the movie where the bad guys have set up this tower with a whole bunch of explosives on it, right? And they're running around doing their action scenes, right? And then what happens is basically you get this part where the white French cop is in it. They're both about to die. And the white French cop says, "Hey, I'm going to stay and disconnect these, these bombs, and you can run off and save yourself. And this will be reparations. This will be me, setting things right. My ancestors took from your ancestors, and this will be me setting it right. I'm going to give reparations to you, right?" It's all said very quickly, and the black French cop says, "No, it says this is not the time for this, right?" And then very, very quickly, oh, by the way, so the black French cop, his name is Ousmane Dikade, and the white French cop, his name is Francois Monge, right? So Francois Monge, the white French cop, says all this and says, "I'm going to give reparations to you." And then Ousmane Dikade, the character, who's the black French cop, says, it's not the time for that, right? And then Francois Monge comes back and goes, "Well, when is the time?" Right? And in one simple, swift scene in a French buddy cop movie, every question of American reparations is existent right there, right? Do I pay you? You know, do I, the person who's getting privileges even today because my ancestors treated your ancestors bad, do I pay you? Or are we both disconnected from that and neither one of us owes anything? The other thing is, when do we do this? And, you know, and the black French cop Ousmane Diakate was like, well, you know, we're in the middle of doing things right now. When are we not in the middle of doing things, right? So this reparations question always is pushed back, right? And then, and the other issue was the Ousmane Diakate, the black French cop, is like, this isn't the right way to pay me back, right? So it's a question of timing. It's a question of who receives and who gives. It's a question of what is the correct payment. And it's all there in one simple, exciting, fun action scene in the middle of this French buddy cop movie, right? Well, guess what? Every single question that we just talked about, right? In America, nobody has time for this. Nobody has time to ask the questions. And so reparations just keeps getting kicked down. The can gets kicked down the line, right? Because Americans can't have this philosophical discussion. But dungeon masters are the future of the world, and we can have this conversation. We have the time to figure out who, what, when of reparations, and we do that with Dungeons & Dragons. And it's been perfectly queued up by Wizards of the Coast Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition design team and Critical Role's Matthew Mercer. In the Exandria book, it is Matthew Mercer specifically sets out the Dwendalian Tolkien races of human, elf, and dwarf, all under the Dwendalian king, and fully establishes that they have oppressed for centuries the monstrous races that live in Xhorhas, right? So Dungeons & Dragons very carefully, Matthew Mercer very carefully set up a perfect platform to answer every single question of American reparations. It's sitting in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, which is in the Exandria world, and Matthew Mercer carefully positioned the book specifically to be used as a platform to answer every single question that exists about American reparations. And so we as the Dungeon Masters can jump in, run cultural experiments, come back with wisdom and answers, and then propose them to our leaders, saying, you had a problem, you never had time, you pushed this off, you didn't do the philosophical work to answer these questions. We've done it with Dungeons & Dragons. We're handing it over to you, to our leaders. We've spent a year, 2 years. Here's all the experiments that were run. Here's thoughts and plans and a complete breakdown of the problem, worked through with narrative experimentation, and now you can apply this solution that we had the time, we had the intelligence, we had the emotional endurance and perseverance to do what you never did. Dungeon Masters are perfectly positioned to solve every problem of the real world today, and American reparations is just one. Get to work. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.